are when they talk about how to protect their families.
We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. We will make America great again.
Welcome to Team Trump Online.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Team Trump Online. I'm Hogan Gidley, National Press Secretary for the Trump-Pence re-election campaign. We've got a great show tonight. Our very own Mark Lauder will be interviewing Vice President Mike Pence about the tragic skyrocketing rates of crime we've seen in many of our communities. Joe Biden and local leaders in these Democrat-controlled cities have inexplicably embraced the dangerous defund the police movement. The vice president will weigh in. And we'll be getting reaction from officers about how Democrats have just abandoned them, siding with lawlessness over law enforcement. And later, we'll be joined by Brandon Tatum, former police officer and founder of TatumReport.com, to discuss the vice president's remarks and why this election is so crucial for restoring and upholding law, order, safety, and security in our cities and communities across this nation. But first, let's hand it over to Mark Lauder.
Thanks, Hogan. I'm in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, where this week Vice President Mike Pence addressed hundreds of people at a Cops for Trump rally. The vice president talked about the president's commitment to law and order. And I also had a chance to talk to him one-on-one about his longtime personal connection to police.
You know, growing up, I had a lot of heroes, and my uncle, who was a Chicago police officer, was one of them. I remember making the long drive up from the small town where we lived in Indiana to Chicago and being at my grandparents' house, seeing him come walking out in his uniform with his sidearm. And literally from that day forward, like most Americans, police officers have been my heroes. I mean, men and women have put on the uniform of law enforcement every day to protect and serve our communities, are really the best of us. And they can be confident that this president and this administration are going to back the blue. We're going to stand with law enforcement, especially at a time when we see rising violence in our cities, when we see Joe Biden and the Democratic Party currying favor of the radical left, embracing their plans to defund the police. As I said here in Pennsylvania today, we're not going to defund the police. We're going to stand with law enforcement and give them the resources as they protect our communities and uphold the rule of law.
As we see what's the violence is gripping the cities and the threats to federal officers, federal buildings, what does it say for President Trump to stand there with law enforcement to protect the rule of law?
Well, look, we all know that what happened to George Floyd in Minneapolis was a tragedy, and justice will be served. There's no excuse for it. But there's also no excuse for the violence and the rioting that has followed ever since. I mean, we're 67 days of violent rioting and protests in Portland alone. And in one city after another where we see the radical left and the Democratic Party embracing policies to cut funding to the police, to defund the police, or even in Minneapolis itself where they're advocating dismantling the police department in that great city. I think it just means the world to people in law enforcement and people all across this country that we have a president who will stand without apology for the men and women who serve in law enforcement. And President Trump's not just standing, but we're providing resources. I mean, this president has provided resources to hire 4,000 more police officers around the country. We're deploying federal law enforcement officials through Operation Legend to cities around the country. We're going to continue to make sure that we stand for law and order and give our law enforcement community the support that they need at every level to achieve real safety for our cities, large and small.
And lastly, as a father, what does it mean to you to protect America's families? It's something that falls on you.
We live in the greatest nation on earth, and every American has every right to believe that their streets are safe, that they can close the door of their home and go to bed at night and be secure. And I promise you, with President Donald Trump in the White House for 4 more years, We're going to deliver that peace and security to America's cities and America's towns. We're going to make sure the American people have the support in law enforcement that they so richly deserve. And we're going to do that by supporting these incredible men and women in law enforcement. I mean, to be here today in Pennsylvania, to see so many people, especially in law enforcement, come out as a part of a Cops for Trump rally it's very humbling for me to see the supports we have. But cops are for Trump because they know Trump's for cops.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Mark.
When you hear and you see what's going on right now in our country, and you hear about the defund police movement, and what does that say to you?
A bunch of sick people that really don't know what it's like to live without police. That's actually, if they see some of the advertisements that's going on, I shouldn't say advertisements, some of the information that's going on over the internet or online in regards to what these people are doing against the police, they're throwing everything possible that they're going to shake their head and reinvestigate. Are these people authentic? Are these people worth going to? I hope to God I'm wrong in that situation, but my God, you see how many policemen are retiring, you see how many policemen are getting killed. Somebody said to me, in fact, it was my wife. She says, Dad, should you take that off your badge? I says, no, anybody knows why that's there will realize this is for the policemen who are gone. We had one in New Kensington that wasn't involved with this situation, but it was over a drug deal, and it was Brian Shaw, and boy, that was a heartbreaking situation.
When you hear, if you could give a message to Joe Biden when he says that police are the enemy, you were a police officer for a long time. You led policemen and women in the line of duty. What would your message to Joe Biden be about calling police the enemy?
What are you smoking, Joe? Basically, he's got to be smoking something. If you look at him when he comes on TV, his eyes are not following the wording that he's reading. Everything he's doing, he's reading. No, I'm not trying to say that to help him get elected, by all means, but I can't think, in all the years that I've been watching politics on TV, I don't ever remember him doing anything good for this country. Nothing.
One last question. As a longtime police officer, servant to the community, you know the importance that police play in the lives of communities and your neighbors. I mean, how do you best summarize that?
Wow. Well, in 20 years as a policeman, I had one situation that I actually seven sexual assaults with children I had that I can remember every one of them. But the one was a young baby of a different color. Well, I didn't even look at that situation, but she was choking at the time, and the mother says I saved her daughter, but and thank God the ambulance came in that time too. But all you have to do is believe in your police department, and those individuals that don't serve you as well as they should, let them be known. Let council know what's going on. But most of them have their hearts in what they're doing. And if you don't believe it, just check them. Especially today, they're all wearing vests today. So, and it's a sad thing because I never wore my vest. The only situations that would come about, I did put my vest on. But I end up giving it to another police officer.
I was a Pennsylvania State Police trooper for 31 years. I retired 1 year ago. I'm currently in North Huntington Township Commissioner here in North Huntington Township. President Trump is important in my life because he holds the same ideals, the same values that I do. His support of law enforcement is above anything I've seen before out of a president. In today's world with so little respect and so little so little care given to law enforcement. It's nice to see our President Donald Trump and our Vice President Mike Pence and their continued support for law enforcement all across this great United States. Thank you.
Police officers are here to help. We're here for peace, not turmoil, not destruction, not defunding. And President Trump represents peace. Not all this stuff about war, not all this stuff about internal stuff. He represents peace, and that's why he supports police officers. If you defund police, say hello to criminals more often than you can think. I'm asking you to pray for the right reasons to God. Thank you.
So, Captain, tell me what does it mean to be at a Cops for Trump event today with the Vice President?
It's an honor. It means very much to me. I was very happy to be invited to the event. President Trump, Vice President Pence are big supporters of law enforcement, and it's good to come down and thank them for their efforts that they're making.
You said you've been a law enforcement officer now for 20 years?
28.
28 years. Have you ever seen anything like this in your career with what we're seeing right now going around the country?
No, I haven't. It's definitely, things are changing. We're making the best of it. We get up every morning, we put the uniform on, and we go do our best.
To have the support of the President of the United States, the Vice President, events like this, what does that mean to you and the men and women you serve with?
It's what makes you get out of bed every morning and put the uniform on, knowing that they got our back and they're going to be there for us when we need something. The support is tremendous.
You've seen the effects of law enforcement on the communities you serve. I mean, how do you best capture what you do every day?
Protect and serve. We took the oath to do that. We make the best of it. We go out, and that's the best that we can do, is just do our best. The community support that we get from the business owners is tremendous. The support that we get from the neighboring counties, the neighboring communities, the people in the neighborhoods, it's been great.
When you hear things like defund the police, what does that mean to you in impact?
It really upsets me. We scrimp and we scratch and we try to make the best of the equipment that we have now. We're always in need of equipment, updated equipment. When people talk about defunding us, it's very hard to accept.
If you could give, so you've heard that Joe Biden called police the enemy. I mean, what would you like to say to Joe Biden about that?
Well, Mr. Biden, I don't want to say anything, that would upset him or anything, but he needs to take a look at what the police do and the good that we do, and reevaluate his decision making on that.
So tell me why the Blue Knights are here today.
Blue Knights are here to support President Trump in his re-election bid, because we feel as though he is the most capable of either of the candidates and someone that stands up for law enforcement. Our group is made up primarily of active and retired law enforcement, so we are here to show him our support.
What does it mean to know that you have the President of the United States, the Vice President today, here talking about law and order and supporting the men and women in blue?
It means everything for us. For a lot of us, this isn't a job, it's a calling. You basically get into this line of work because you care so much about the people and you want to make a difference in the public. And to have the highest office in the whole world supporting us is very important to us.
On the flip side, Joe Biden has called police the enemy. He's endorsed the defund the police movement. I mean, when you hear about those kinds of things, what is that? How do you react?
I think the initial reaction is anger, because he doesn't understand us. He's a career politician, over 40 years, that has lost touch with the people. And it upsets me because he walks around with security. So why would he want to take away the security from the neighborhoods and the people that he wants to vote for him?
So when you look around and see what's going on in America's cities right now, it's primarily our large cities. I mean, as a someone so closely connected to law enforcement, I mean, defunding the police, is that the answer?
It isn't. It absolutely is not. And I'll explain a little bit of the reason why. I feel as though it's one of the most racially motivated things that I've ever seen, and I'm 43 years old. Whenever it comes to defund the police, it won't be your predominantly middle-class neighborhoods. It will be your lower-class neighborhoods that get defunded, because these neighborhoods will make sure that they have police protection. And primarily, minorities live in the lower-class neighborhoods. They're going to suffer from violence and murder.
And How do we move forward from this?
I think the way that we move forward is with President Trump and Vice President's plan. We all sit down with our communities and see where we're lacking, things that they need, things that we need to move forward to all work together and create the country that we want.
And I know that many in the law enforcement community, when someone acts inappropriately, you are the first ones who want those people to be handled with, because it puts a bad name on everyone.
Absolutely. Every good cop cannot stand a bad cop. We are the first ones to speak out against them, and we are the ones that stand strong against any kind of corruption in law enforcement. We've shown that we police our ranks for years. You've seen law enforcement be prosecuted, and we stand with all good cops, stand against bad cops.
If you could send a message right now to the president, what would you say?
Keep up the good work. We're with you, President.
We'd like to thank the Vice President for sharing his heart with us this evening about this vital topic. Liberal-controlled cities like Portland, Chicago, New York, and Seattle are heartbreaking examples of what communities across this nation would look like with Joe Biden as president. As he's already proven, Joe Biden would sit by and allow the violent, destructive liberal mob to run wild, looting, rioting, assaulting innocent Americans, burning buildings and churches, and vandalizing businesses and property. Thank goodness we have a president now who stands up to protect the American people and provide law, order, safety, and security. To expand on this topic, we have Brandon Tatum with us, former police officer and founder of TatumReport.com. Brandon, welcome to Team Trump Online.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Now, first off, let's discuss the president's response to this anarchy and destruction. While liberal mayors abandon the residents and leave them to fend for themselves against the violent mobs, President Trump is surging federal law enforcement into these cities to do the jobs that the mayors have failed to do. Brandon, two questions. First, why do you think Joe Biden has caved to the radical far left in his party? And two, how do you think this call to defund the police will play with voters?
Well, Joe Biden has caved for a very simple reason. Is because if he identifies with anything that President Trump has done, you might as well vote for President Trump. He's not in any contrast. President Trump has done a tremendous job, but he has to bow down to the leftist mob is because that's their strategy to win in 2020. Now, in my personal opinion, I think it's a tremendously failing strategy, but I think that's a strategy that they're going to use, and they need to push Joe Biden as the face of this strategy because he's definitely not in a position psychologically, morally, he's not in a position health-wise to even run for president of the United States or even be in that position to lead the country. So they need a face that they can push out there and push some leftist agenda, and he's the one that has failed for it. Now, his rhetoric about defunding the police, or his response to it, which is nothing. He's not standing up for police officers in America. He's not standing strong as a leader of law and order. No one with a right mindset will vote for President or Vice President Joe Biden. Nobody's going to do that. And he could have really gained some real ground. And if I was a Democrat, I would have liked to see him at least stand in the middle when it comes to police in America, because this is a country of law and order. People in this country, by and large, love their police officers, and we believe that they should be protected. We believe that they should be able to do their job and that they're the backbone of our communities. So if you're going to be a candidate running to represent all of the people of the United States of America, and you decide to come out and say that you're not going to support funding the police, you're not going to win an election.
Those are great points. Absolutely on the money there. And, you know, a vast majority of the American people say they do support law enforcement. So you hit the nail on the head there. And, you know, these liberal mayors almost seem more upset that President Trump is forced to get involved than the actual violence that's happening on the streets that causes him to send the law enforcement there in the first place. So the destruction that has occurred for the 60 plus days over there is just completely unacceptable. Most Americans reject it. So why won't these liberal mayors accept the president's help to restore law and order?
The first main reason why they will not accept help from the president of the United States, because it shows and it proves to everybody in the country that they are weak and failed leaders. They cannot identify with anything that the president is doing. He can cure cancer, and they cannot identify with him because people will then find out that they do not love this country the way the president does, and they will never get reelected. This is an example of failed cowardice leadership. They know that their city is burning to the ground, but they simply refuse to support them because of their hatred and vitriol against the president. So I think what they're doing is showing their hand. They're proving that they're not quality leaders. And the American people, I'm hoping to God that they can see what's going on, and then they can go and vote appropriately.
I do too, and no one wants their cities burning to the ground. I'm sorry, no matter what the mainstream media tells you, they don't want to see that type of destruction. They sure don't want to see the American people suffering, and so hopefully they'll wise up sooner or later and actually report the real news, and the American people will see it. But that defund the police movement is, in fact, growing throughout liberal cities, with some places like New York actually making the move to cut funding from their police departments, even as the crime, of course, spikes to record levels. So why won't more Democrats and Joe Biden actually condemn what is clearly a dangerous movement?
Well, let's get the definitions correct, because I think that defund the police, they are intentionally trying to eliminate the police and replace the police with their level of security forces. Let's not get that twisted, because they put it out there and it was so ridiculous and it was such an ignorant statement and no one would support that. They want to divert now to defunding or switching funds over from the police department to other agencies, which will not do anything. These leaders should be able to see as clear as the noonday sun that when you defund the police, not only just financially defunding the police, but morally defunding the police by pushing rhetoric that hurts their ability to do their job and even hurts the morale on the department, that makes it to where these police officers don't even want to patrol. When you do those things, you will see an uptick in crime. You will see an uptick in law and order not being applied to these cities, and they're going to get run to the ground. They're going to get run into the dirt. So I think that these leaders really need to step their game up and start applying principles that can be consistent across the board. First being, you support your law enforcement agencies, those agencies will support the people will become happy, and you will be able to have that position long term. The way they're going now, they're going to end up ruining their reputation forever.
I have a question. You hit on something there that I want to kind of unpack a little bit. You mentioned financially being defunded, but you also mentioned morally being defunded. Can you talk a little bit about that particular piece? Because obviously they're tethered to some degree, because if you're taking away someone's money, it's almost like you devalue what they do. But also just to hear the rhetoric from some of these mayors and governors and Democrat legislators kind of running down the police department and what they do, when you consider every time you leave your house, there's no guarantee you're coming home. So what does that do, not just financially, but as you said, the moral defunding? How does that work?
Well, the moral defunding is the most efficient way of demoralizing the police department. The money comes, that's like a spit in the face. That's like icing on the cake to some of these leftist individuals. But as a police officer, as a former police officer myself, you go to work because you love the job. It's a calling on your life. You care about the people. And when you go to that job, you expect that your leadership is going to protect you in case something happens. When your leadership is coming out and they're dragging you through the mud, they're indicting people for doing their job, you don't want to go and perform. You begin to believe that it's not worth you losing your entire life and you putting your family in a precarious situation because you have protected a person that don't even care about their own life. When they put you in that position, it makes you want to withdraw. Why am I doing this job? Why do I care more than the people do? And when you do that, crime goes up. There's no proactive policing. Police officers are retiring. They're leaving the police force. They're lateraling to other police agencies. It's horrible. And then when you add all of that as a stress additive to police officers in America, and then you don't pay them, and then you cut units that they know are supporting the city, I mean, you're literally spitting in their face. And so you're going to get even more police officers rejecting the notion of joining, rejecting the notion of retiring with longevity. And you're going to get a city that's going to get run to the ground. I guarantee you.
That spit in the face line. So sad as to what that means for you guys. I understand how you must be feeling. And I have to say, Brandon, you mentioned it, but you wore the uniform. So you also have a lot of friends in law enforcement, obviously. And what are y'all thinking and feeling when you hear Democratic elected officials kind of turn their backs, meaning it's not so much the moral defunding as we just talked about. This question is more about the silence. So what does Joe Biden's silence on the issue mean to the men and women in blue, as well as to those who live and serve in those communities?
Well, Joe Biden's silence on the issue proves to everybody with a connected brainstem that he is not in support of police. This is not just not supporting police financially. This is legitimately police are getting attacked and killed, and they're getting bludgeoned trying to protect the people. And you have somebody like Joe Biden that won't even mention it. But they'll go out of their way to mention illegal aliens in this country. They'll go out of their way to talk about every other subject, but they will not talk about the police because they do not care at all. And this is a troubling time for us in this country because I'm telling you, law enforcement in America is the backbone of America. It's the way that we are safe, even an object where people feel safe. Because not only are police, getting ran through the mud, now citizens are afraid. You don't know if these lunatics decide to burn your house down because they don't like you, who's there to protect you? And that's a problem that's going to be residual. And people like Joe Biden are showing they do not care.
Well, listen, I tell you, I really appreciate you so much for joining Team Trump Online tonight, Brandon. Your information, your guidance through this difficult topic is vital. I hope more people listen to it and understand exactly what we're up against here. So thanks again so much. Before we wrap up tonight's broadcast, I'd like to invite everyone watching at home to get involved in our campaign. We're less than 100 days out from the most critical and important election of our lifetimes, and that is no exaggeration. Joe Biden has been willingly led by the far left wing to embrace policies that equate to radical socialism. To get involved and to help stop Joe Biden's dangerous attack on our American way of life and our brave men and women of local law enforcement, make sure to download our official Trump 2020 campaign app available on Apple and Android. Visit armyfortrump.com to sign up to volunteer with your local campaign team. And as always, text Trump 88022. That's Trump text Trump to 88022 to stay connected with us and learn how you can best help secure 4 more years of Trump and Pence. Brandon, before we get out of here tonight, are there any final thoughts you'd like to share with the viewers about this election and what it means for our peace and security in our nation?
Yeah, this is, like you reiterated before, this is one of the most crucial elections ever to exist in American history. And I think that we need to go out, we need to perform. Talking, we've gone past that point. We need to physically go out and vote and make sure that we re-elect President Trump, because that will be the end of our country. I guarantee you, if you think that anarchy and chaos is going on in a rampant way right now, if any of these leftist lunatics become the president, it's over for us. No more United States of America. And it's not just talking, you've seen action. So go out and vote for President Trump. That's easy.
Well, thanks so much, Brandon. That sure is easy. Go out and vote for President Trump. No better words. Listen, I really appreciate your service. A huge thank you to you and all you've done for this country. And thanks to everyone tonight at home for tuning in. Thursday morning, one of President Trump's biggest supporters and strongest advocates, Herman Cain, was called home to heaven. We here at the campaign were saddened to learn of his passing, and our prayers are with his family. Herman was a groundbreaking, iconic entrepreneur and the personification of the American dream. I had the pleasure, and I do mean pleasure, of seeing him daily on the campaign trail in Iowa way back in 2012 when he ran for president. He loved this country, its unparalleled freedoms, and spoke often about the expansive, unique opportunities that he, as an American, received every single day that made his personal and political successes possible. He was larger than life. In business, politics, and service to God, Herman was a leader and an incredible human being. We were honored to consider him part of our Trump campaign family. Our deepest condolences are with his wife, Gloria, his children, Melanie and Vincent. Herman's legacy will last for generations. May he rest in peace. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep fighting for 4 more years of promises made and promises kept. Good night, and God bless.